Welcome to Sharika Talks, Unraveling the Truth, a journalist's quest. Subscribe for the truth.
Chapter 15, The Longest Platform. Sheila Bhatia sat cross-legged on the immaculate wooden floor of the BBC Delhi studio, its faint lavender walls humming with morning light. She checked her watch, 10:35 a.m., and permitted herself a small, knowing smile. Kailash Satyajit was fashionably 5 minutes late. In her 50-plus years of journalism, Sheila had learned that great men ran on their own clocks. A few minutes meant nothing compared to a story well told. Sheila brushed a wispy lock of silvery hair behind her ear. Her face still held the warmth and confidence of a woman 2 decades younger, yet she felt each passing year settle into her bones. The rescue operation they had just filmed the day before yesterday, live, on location, alongside Kailash Satyajit's team and a cadre of young RPF officers, still played in her mind. She longed to have gone into the field, to have run shoulder to shoulder with Riaz in the crowded platforms, camera in hand, but she knew her age would betray her. The body that once sprinted through Naxalite insurgencies and even the battleground of the Kargil War now protested at hours standing. Across from her, Sukumar Rao droned softly through his notes. He was initially the field assistant assigned to the project, pale, fidgety, and perpetually uncertain. Sheila had given him simple tasks, cable wrangling, battery checks, basic research on the field, but he moved as if each assignment weighed him down with existential dread. Sheila caught him glancing at his salary slip and wondered if he believed the pay justified the risk. To her, the man seemed resigned to mediocrity, and in this kind of work, mediocrity was unacceptable. Initially, the plan was simple. Sheila would lead the project editorially, with Anuj and Sharika assisting from the office. Riaz, Farhana, and Sukumar would cover the field reporting across India and Nepal. Anuj was a promising editor, scriptwriter, and second cameraman, while Sharika, a college intern, was brought in to observe and help with scripting, logistics, and interview prep. Sukumar Rao was the only permanent staff from BBC on the project. Anuj and Farhana were classmates and best friends, working as freelancers mostly assisting Sheila. They had taken Sheila as their mentor after their PG from Amity College, Delhi, and had been working under her wings ever since. Riaz was a veteran. He had first worked with Sheila during the 2005 Mumbai terrorist attacks at the age of 24 for India Today. Now working as a freelancer for all major corporations, he was a very accomplished cameraman. With all these professionals in hand, Sharika was insignificant. So at first, Sheila had asked Sharika to draft basic interview questions, surely a trivial task. What could a 22-year-old know about framing hard-hitting questions for a Nobel-level activist? But the next morning, Sharika had delivered a set of questions in elegant prose, anticipating not only what Kailash Satyajit might say, but how he might respond, down to likely emotional inflections and follow-up probes. Sheila had been astonished by the precision and depth. Over the next 10 days, meetings blurred into one another. Riaz and Farhana raced across states capturing stories of child labor, trafficking, and displacement. Sukumar remained inconsistent, unreliable. Sheila described him as a walking resignation letter. Nervous, slow, and uninspired. He worked like he was afraid of ambition, and for Sheila, that was unforgivable. Sharika, on the other hand, that college girl from Jamia, was fire-wrapped in silk. Despite being meant for simple office work, she was growing indispensable. When Farhana finally confronted Sheila with a frustrated plea, "Ma'am, we need to replace him. If Sukumar stays, we'll never finish before October 2nd. They were initially planning to telecast on October 11th, International Day of the Girl Child. But Ravindra Chaudhary, the BBC editor-in-charge, requested that it would be better to air on October 2nd. October 11th may be an internationally famous day, but for India, October 2nd is the perfect day, he said. After thinking it through, Sheila agreed. Apart from being the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi, It was the International Day of Nonviolence, symbolic for the project. Overhearing Farhana's words, Sharika offered herself as the solution. Despite protests from her grandfather and Sheila herself, she persisted. Sheila relented on one condition: no face on camera. You may help with scripting, locate visuals, scout people, and other field duties, but your face remains off limits. Understood? Sharika had nodded, puzzled at first, but obedient. 2 weeks after Sharika joined the field team, everything had fallen into place more perfectly than expected. Then on September 25th, Sheila received a phone call from Balwinder Singh from the Satyajit Foundation. A known traffickers network was moving 33 girls from Nepal through Gorakhpur Railway Station on September 27. The news was urgent. The risk, monumental. As soon as Sheila informed Riaz, the team, Riaz, Farhana, and Sharika, rushed from Lucknow, where they were shooting the city and the slums, to Gorakhpur aboard the Vande Bharat Express, the fastest train in India. With the cameras and other gear in hand, it was faster and more convenient than a flight, which became a boon to Sharika. They arrived early on the 26th and began planning visuals. Anuj persuaded Sheila to let him also join the party. The more eyes we have, the better the visuals, he said. He reached Gorakhpur by noon. By evening, Balwinder and his team also arrived, and they teamed up with some young and energetic, sincere RPF officers. A total of 11 men were present. This is a critical operation, Balwinder started the briefing. We'll only get one chance. They may come in small clusters, 4 or 5 girls at a time usually, led by men who blend in easily. Most will be armed, likely with knives, possibly with guns. We must wait until they're all near the coach before we strike. If we move early, we risk losing some of the girls. Identification is the hardest part. They dress normally, they behave normally. But inside, they're hostages. We failed before because we tried to act too soon. The traffickers know how to scatter. This time, we need timing and coordination. They chose this railway station because it is the busiest and nearest station to the India-Nepal border at Sunauli. Of course, the traffickers wouldn't cross through the guarded border at Sunauli, but through unguarded routes or private properties. So this station was their only interception point. Remember, he added, we don't move until all the girls are within reach. If we break formation early, we lose them to the shadows, and aim to subdue, not kill, unless there's a gun. He looked to Anuj, Riaz, Farhana, and Sharika. Film everything. No matter what happens, show the truth to the world. Gorakhpur Railway Station, which had the longest platform in Asia, loomed like a concrete riverbank stretching into infinity. Its cavernous sheds echoed with the clang of kettle drums, vendors calling, and the rumble of arriving trains. By 4 a.m., RPF officers and Satyajit Foundation men had secured strategic vantage points near the ticket counter, beside the luggage carts, and along the platform's east wing. Everyone wore plain clothes except 2 officers in crisp khaki, wielding riot shields and pistols. Balwinder Singh, now on site, moved among the field teams with sharp, practiced urgency. He coordinated with the RPF through earpieces and used hand signals to keep his own men aligned. Clad in a white long kurta and a blue turban, he looked more like a common Sikh man. Already more than 6.5 feet in height and another half foot added by his turban, he towered like a lighthouse. Riaz set up his camera with a telescopic lens behind an ornate wooden pillar near the retiring rooms at the 2nd floor of Gate 7. Its gleaming lens pointed like a sniper rifle at the far end. He was dressed in his usual checked shirt and brown jeans with a sleeveless photographer jacket. At first, he contemplated blending in as a common man, but then changed plan. Farhana blended into a group of chai vendors by entrance 3, microphone hidden in her salwar kameez and a camera in her handbag. Sharika, heart pounding, found a spot in a closed station stall near entrance 1, where they least expected them to enter. Anuj was dressed like a college boy with a camera in his bag. When the clock ticked to 7:13 a.m., Dawn was a pale wash of rose and amber. Sharika's breath caught in her throat as she noticed a tall man with a dark jacket entering. He was walking briskly towards the edge of Platform 9. A bulge at his hip reflected faint sunlight. It was the barrel of a pistol. Another man trailed behind him, carrying a worn black duffel. 4 veiled women walked ahead, their faces hidden by scarves, yet their eyes gleaming with fear and resignation. Sharika's hands were damp with nervous sweat as she gripped the camcorder. She didn't blink. She informed the sighting to everyone, whispering into her earpiece. Riaz spotted them immediately in his telescopic camera and stayed where he was. Confirmed. Visuals locked, he responded. More shadows began to gather. In batches of 2s and 3s, men emerged from different directions, forming a loose circle around a locked coach at the far end of the platform. The girls arrived in small groups, ushered quietly. Some cried. Some simply walked. All of them looked like they had forgotten how to hope. Each of the Satyajit Foundation workers and RPF officers followed them unnoticed. And like a hawk, Riaz captured everything. Sharika whispered into the comms, "Count, 33 girls, 13 men. They're moving to the rear coach of the train at the platform." From across the platform, Anu shifted slightly, his camera rolling. Farhana held her breath behind a tea vendor stall. And then Balwinder Singh's voice rang softly through the channel, "Execute." A crack of a gunshot shattered the silence. One of the traffickers crumpled, his pistol skidding across the platform. Screams erupted. Then, chaos. Sharika's camera shook as she tried to stay steady. The traffickers reacted violently, drawing blades and lunging at the nearest officers. RPF men stormed in with long steel rods, swinging with force that sent bones cracking. Some strikes landed blindly. Others hit knees, ribs, and forearms with surgical accuracy. She had once seen the lathi charge of Kerala police near her Maharaja's college. Those used wooden lathis which hurt like hell, but kept the bone in place. But these steel rods were a different story. A trafficker deflected one blow and charged at an officer. The officer pivoted, his rod snapping across the man's shin with a sickening crack. The man howled, staggering to the ground. The Satyajit Foundation's men moved differently. They fought close, precise, efficient. When the attackers swung the blade, instead of moving back and dodging the attack, they closed in. One grabbed a knife-wielding man by the wrist, spun behind him, and slammed his elbow into the base of his skull. Another dove low, taking out a man's legs, then landed 2 quick strikes to the thigh and shoulder. Another operative swept in, snatching a small revolver from a fleeing trafficker's hand and using the same barrel to smash the man's kneecap. The bone snapped audibly. The trafficker collapsed, screaming more in shock than pain. Just meters away, Balwinder Singh tackled an attacker with a long knife in hand from the side, wrestled him to the ground, and struck his shin with the end of a confiscated rod. The man howled, then lay still. Blood spattered the platform tiles. A young girl collapsed behind a pillar, weeping. Sharika turned her camera on her for only a second, then turned back to the chaos. Sharika's camcorder captured every second. The frantic scramble of uniformed officers, the weeping girls huddled behind a luggage cart, the glint of knives flashing under the station lights. Smoke from the engine drifted through the air, staining the dust with acrid white. An RPF officer in a scarlet turban jabbed forward with his rod, forcing a fleeing trafficker to topple into a pile of luggage. A knife slipped from the man's hand, clattering onto the platform like a death knell. Another attacker was also trying to run away by jumping into the railway track. A Foundation operative shouted a warning. The man didn't stop, but he ran into a bearded man in a gray jacket with a camera in hand. Sharika never saw him come, but like a hawk, he was at the spot even before the first shot was fired. The attacker stumbled with a straight front kick from Riaz, who held the camera steady with both hands. He had to spin on the spot to maintain balance after the kick, as his camera again focused on that attacker. The stumbling man was struck by an RPF officer's steel rod on the jaw, which shattered it instantly. As Sharika watched, Balwinder Singh was clutching two attackers inside his arms by the neck. A strike of the steel rod to their kneecaps by an RPF officer followed. Unlike in films, the real fight didn't last long. Within a couple of minutes, it was over. Humans can't handle multiple hits with steel rods and heavy objects. Being even more fragile than a stray dog, a human body can't even handle a fall unless trained. As the dust settled, the girls were gathered and shielded. The traffickers were cuffed and subdued. All 13 had been taken alive, most of them with broken legs and 6 of them unconscious. Sharika lowered her camcorder. Her hands were shaking, her body sore from crouching, her throat dry. She stood and moved toward the others. Riaz patted her shoulder. "You caught it all?" Sharika nodded. Farhana came over, guiding a young girl wrapped in a shawl. She says she's from Gorkha, was kidnapped 2 weeks ago. That afternoon, in a nearby safe house of Satyajit Foundation, Sharika, Farhana, Anuj, and Riaz interviewed each rescued girl, one by one, tearful, silent, brave. And then something caught Sharika's eye, a white donation board bearing the logo of Deep Enterprises. Her stomach tightened. She took a photo immediately and called Sheila. "Sheila, ma'am," she said, "we need to include this in the interview on the 29th with Kailesh. Deep Enterprises is funding this shelter." They returned to Delhi the next day, greeted at the studio by soft applause and teary smiles. Sheila hugged Sharika, a rare gesture, and said only, "You did a great job." She insisted they take a rest day. Sharika slept until 1 p.m. the next afternoon. The bed felt unfamiliar after nights on station benches and dusty floors. But sleep only brought temporary peace. Her mind churned with images, the girls, the blood, the eyes. She brewed coffee, opened her journal, and began writing. September 27th, Gorakhpur. As she finished, she closed the diary. Today was meant to be her day off. But in Sharika's world, that meant one thing: Project Umbra. She opened her laptop, eyes scanning quickly to the smart tag interface. The last time she checked was on September 4th. Then Sachin was still in Palakkad. From the day after the Kochi incident, the dot hadn't moved. She feared the bag was lost or replaced by Sachin, or worse. But the signal had changed. The very next day, the dot was active again. Sachin was moving. Sharika leaned back in her chair, the weight of her pen and her past finally catching up to her. There was still a story to finish. She reopened her journal. Umbra is alive again. End of.
Thank you for watching Unraveling the Truth, A Journalist's Quest. Subscribe to stay updated on Sharika's journey. Stay tuned for the next part.
Disclaimer. Unraveling the Truth, A Journalist's Quest is a work of fiction. The experiences, ideas, and theories presented by the characters, including the books they write, are purely fictional and do not reflect real-world events, beliefs, or ideologies. While some incidents and characters may be inspired by real-world scenarios, they are entirely fictionalized for storytelling purposes. The author does not endorse or share the viewpoints expressed by any character in this novel. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real events is purely coincidental. Viewer discretion is advised.